What's up? I've been testing on the beta so you guys don't have to. Today we're going to cover Fury and Arms builds in Raid and Mythic Plus, what they're looking like in Dragonflight, and the likely builds that you're going to see going in. So first off, I'm going to start with Fury because Fury is an easier spec in general and there's less builds. There's less stuff up in the air. It's more obvious what we're going to take. So starting off, I'm going to go over raid builds. So two main raid builds that we're going to see for Fury are the classic Raging Blow build, which is sort of the Shadowlands build that we have now with the addition of Odin's Fury. So Odin's Fury is a new talent that we have that is just like an AoE bleed. Right now it's scaled really high, so it does really good damage. And we're also taking Dragon's Roar mainly for that bleed effect. It's unclear right now if that tuning goes through, if we'll take Dragon Roar or the Spear of Bastion for the crit damage. Both are good right now, just Dragon's Roar seems to be more popular and perform a little better. The next build we have is the Annihilator build. So this is a new build coming into Dragonflight. This build focuses around auto attacks and then amplified slams. So the Annihilator build really leans into just full auto attack damage. It's kind of interesting. They tried to make one-handed Fury viable, but right now with tuning, you can run this build with two-handers, but the one-hander variant is not quite performing as well. So we have a couple of talents here at the bottom that just amplify your auto attack damage and are just going to make your two-handers hit really hard. As well as Odin's Fury, it's increases your auto attack damage as well with the bottom trait. In terms of Mythic Plus, there's kind of only one variant that's popular right now, and it's just the classic Raging Blow with the Whirlwind. So one new benefit that we have with Whirlwind is it used to amplify the next 2 auto attacks. Now it amplifies the next 4. So that's nice. You don't have to Whirlwind as much, and you still get the AoE. Odin's Fury combined with Dragon's Roar also does a massive amount of damage in AoE, and it's all bleed damage, so that's pretty fun and interesting. This is kind of the only build we see right now. Again, it's unclear if the Spear of Bastion build will come out on top. It very well could. It depends on if anything gets changed. That's pretty much it for Fury. I mean, Fury, you kind of slam your cooldowns, slam those buttons. It's a really high APM spec, and you're only getting faster in Dragonflight. So if you enjoy really smashing those buttons as fast as you can and always having something to press, then Fury's a great spec. They're performing decently. They're not like insanely up there, which is good. That means they're not going to get targeted for like big nerfs and tuning. So on Arms Warrior is interesting because their builds are a little bit unknown right now. So I have 4 builds that I've researched, I've come up with, I've tested on the beta. So going over the 2 raid builds that we might see, there's a execute build, which is what most people have been seeing on the beta as well as what you've been testing in pre-patch, mainly because of the condemn abuse. But in terms of what that execute build is like in raid, it's fun. When you get to that 35% health point, it's so fun just absolutely slamming that execute button and hitting massive numbers, seeing your nameplate jump all the way up. This build I have a feeling will be required for a lot of raids out there, just because the hardest point of a raid fight is the last couple of percent, right? So just having a class that specializes in that bottom 35% of a fight just makes warriors extremely valuable. The next raid build that we have is the Bleed raid build. So this is new to Dragonflight. This focuses on taking all of your bleed talents, including Dragon's Roar, Rend, and then Skull Splitter. So Skull Splitter has changed now with the way this talent works. Now when you press Skull Splitter, it'll instantly expire all of your dots on the target. So the way you want to use this is apply all of your dots and then Skull Splitter right away. You don't want to Skull Splitter randomly. You want to make sure you always Skull Splitter with Dragon's Roar. You always want to Skull Splitter with a fresh rend on the target, a fresh deep wounds on the target. This build right now, it's interesting. It does perform okay in single target, and I think it'll be interesting, especially in PvP, to see how this build is going to go, because it's a lot of burst in a very short amount of time in one button. So, yeah, no, it's an interesting build. I think we could very well see this in Raid. In terms of Mythic Plus, there's a few builds we might see. Both of them require Bladestorm. I think Bladestorm in Mythic Plus is too good of a button, especially with the Merciless Bone Grinder, which used to be a conduit in Shadowlands. So, what Merciless Bone Grinder does is after our Bladestorm, our next Whirlwind does 50% more damage, and that combined with all of our Whirlwind talents, just so many Whirlwind talents, our Whirlwinds hits really, really hard in AoE. So we always want to take this talent because it just amplifies our Bladestorm. As well as that, we want to always take the Bladestorm avatar talent. It just gives us a second Bladestorm. So having twice as many Whirlwind procs available is just great. So the difference between these two builds I'm going to talk about, the first one being the Bleed build, is the Bleed build focuses on amplifying your AoE rend, which is something they introduced where your Thunderclap now spreads rend to all targets that it hits. Yeah, this build is pretty good. In general, both builds will take the Sweeping Strikes, Cleave, classic talents. You're just deciding if you want to lean down towards bleed effects or if you want to lean towards the execute effects. So the other build, being the execute build, leans into the execute effects, but both builds you'll similarly see that they take Bladestorm, they take Merciless Bone Grinder. This is sort of what you're going to see in Mythic Plus for Arms Warrior. It's up in the air right now if you're going to take the Spear of Bastion with execute or the Thunderous Roar with the Bleed build. This will depend heavily on tuning, might even depend on the dungeon. Obviously, if there's really long execute phases, that execute build is going to come out on top. If there's like no execute phases where the boss is always above 50% HP, if it's a weird fight, then the Bleed build will probably come out on top. And yeah, I think Arms has lots to look forward to. I think they'll be very desirable in Raid. Fury as well is always smashy and fun as ever. And both warrior specs having access to Rallying Cry, extra Whirlwind damage, and as well as just the classic warrior utility. They're looking good. They're looking good for Dragonflight. I'm not going over Prot right now, but keep in mind Prot is also looking great. Prot slams in Mythic Plus. It's unkillable. It's a great spec as well. Thanks for watching this far. Hopefully it was helpful. If you have any questions on the rotation or anything like that, put it in the comments. I always answer. Anyways, yeah, have a good one.